Most people see the last chapters of life as a slow fade into nothing, a countdown to the end. But what if I told you that a joyful old age is possible, and a miserable one is built on 9 specific, fatal choices? If you're currently making just a few of these, your final years are on track to become a private hell. Stick with me, because the 9th mistake will completely change how you see your own future. A quiet tragedy. When I look at many older folks today, a deep sadness hits me. I see people who've lived for decades, collected a lifetime of stories, and survived so much. Yet, they sit quietly in assisted living facilities or move through their days with a blankness in their eyes, like ghosts in their own bodies. They are breathing, but they have stopped living. They exist, but they have ceased to grow. And the absolute heartbreaking truth: this living death is not a mandate of age. It's a self-inflicted wound caused by tiny, daily choices that poison the human spirit. The first mistake that ensures a bitter end is the weight of yesterday's anger. I've known too many older people whose souls are chained to ancient grudges and past hurts. They obsessively recount how they were wronged decades ago, how their kids let them down, how circumstances stole their shot at happiness. This story of being a victim becomes their entire identity, the fuel that gets them out of bed. But holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. Every morning you choose to nurse that old pain. You are choosing to be a prisoner of your own past. You give your power to people who have probably forgotten you, to events that are long over, and to a hurt that only serves to suffocate any chance of present joy. The elderly who carry this poison have a sharpness in their voice. They attract drama, and then they're mystified when family avoids them, when friends disappear, and when their final days are crushingly lonely. This mistake has wrecked more lives than I can count. Your body gets old, but your spirit dies first, choked by the refusal to let go. When you cling to resentment, the only person you are punishing is yourself. You are making the choice to watch the worst scenes of your life on a loop instead of making new memories. You are letting yesterday devour your tomorrow. The cure for this poison isn't to deny that the bad things happened. It's to realize that forgiveness is an act of self-preservation. It is for you. It's your decision to refuse to let that old wound control your current peace. It is the brave choice of freedom over the cold comfort of victimhood, the vanishing act. The second deadly choice that leads to misery in your later years is the gradual suicide of self-isolation. I see it all the time. People slowly back away from life, from friends, from their tribe, telling themselves it's a sign of strength when it's actually a symptom of despair. You convince yourself you're better off alone, that dealing with people is too much work, that solitude is easier than connection. This isolation is a slow creep. It's a series of small decisions, saying no to invitations that feel like too much effort, ignoring phone calls that feel draining, quitting hobbies that bring back memories of a younger you. Every no seems logical, but together, they build the walls of a prison, keeping out not just complications, but also laughter, support, and the very energy that comes from being truly seen by another person. I have met elders who haven't had a real conversation in days, who have no one to check in on them, no one to laugh with, and no one to know if they're okay. They are surrounded by silent rooms that once echoed with family, looking at pictures of events they no longer join, fading away from the world long before their last breath. This tragedy is often just pride wearing a mask of independence. You tell yourself you don't want to be a bother, but the real fear is being seen as vulnerable, admitting you still need other people just as much as you did as a child. And so you choose the quiet agony of loneliness to avoid the perceived risk of reaching out. But we are not built for solitude. We are tribal animals who require community to feel alive, no matter our age. The people who age with grace know this. They show up for their friends. They invest in their family. They share what they've learned. They understand that love isn't a bonus. It's the essential fuel for your soul's survival. The unexercised mind. The third fatal mistake is letting your mind turn into a dusty attic where new ideas are never allowed to enter. I meet seniors who basically clocked out of learning when they clocked out of their jobs. They stopped asking hard questions, filled their days with passive TV, and now they wonder why they feel so hollow, aimless, and confused. Your mind is an organ that needs a workout. When you stop giving it challenges and new information, it weakens and begins to decay. You become inflexible, afraid of change, and locked inside a mental world you built for yourself 30 years ago. I've seen brilliant minds become faint echoes of what they were, all because they bought into the lie that learning has an expiration date. They stopped reading things that made them think, stopped having conversations that mattered, stopped being curious about the world. They surrendered, telling themselves they were too old or too tired to grow. In doing so, their own minds became their cages. The most alive older people I know are students of life until the very end. They're taking online courses, trying to understand new tech, or debating ideas with people younger than them. They get that mental vitality has nothing to do with your birth year. It's about your attitude. It's about being curious and refusing to believe your best thoughts are in the past. When you keep your mind in motion, you keep your spark. You remain part of the conversation, not because you're trying to act young, but because you are choosing to be fully present at any age. The treason against your body, the fourth deadly error, is giving up on your physical self without even putting up a fight. I see elderly folks who talk about their bodies like they're abandoned cars, accepting every ache and loss of strength as an unavoidable part of getting older. They cease to move, to stretch, to challenge their own physical limits, and then are surprised when every day becomes a painful battle with their own body. Your body has been your loyal companion for this entire ride. It has carried you, healed you, and fought for you for decades. It deserves your active partnership, not your resignation. When you give up on your body, you surrender your ticket to engage with the world. The brutal truth is, so much of what people call aging is really just the consequence of lifestyle, not a biological blueprint. The stiffness, frailty, and chronic pain so many older people take for granted can often be held at bay, improved, or even turned around with consistent care. I know people in their 80s who are stronger and more flexible than people in their 50s. The secret isn't genetics, it's commitment. They chose to go for a walk when it was easier to stay on the couch. They chose to lift weights when others chose to accept weakness. They chose to honor their body as something sacred, not something to be tolerated. Being physically capable in old age isn't about looking like you did at 25. It's about having the fundamental ability to live with dignity, to play with your grandkids, to serve your community, and to feel the simple joy of being in a body that still works with you. The retirement from meaning. The fifth fatal mistake is the belief that clocking out from your job means you should clock out from life itself. I see so many people who build decades of expertise, skills, and hard-earned wisdom, only to toss it all aside at an arbitrary age. You tell yourself you've paid your dues and earned the right to be irrelevant. But human beings are not wired for a life without meaning. We are creatures who desperately need to feel that we matter, that we have something to offer, that our time here serves a purpose beyond our own pleasure. When you give up on having a purpose, you give up on the very thing that ignites life. I have witnessed vibrant, successful people spiral into depression and illness almost immediately after retiring. They lost their reason to get up, their mountain to climb, their way of contributing their unique value. They thought they wanted freedom from work, but they ended up with freedom from purpose, and the emptiness was crushing. The seniors who truly glow are those who understand their purpose transforms, but it never ends. They may not be a CEO anymore, but they become a mentor. If they volunteer for something they believe in, they create something beautiful, or they simply become the rock of wisdom and support for their family. Purpose is not your job title. It's the conscious decision you make every day to stay in the game, to keep giving your gifts to the world, no matter what it says on your driver's license. The great unanswered questions. The sixth devastating mistake is arriving at the final stretch of life with no inner compass, no connection to anything larger than yourself. As your body changes, as friends start to pass away, as you can no longer ignore the truth of your own mortality, you need a source of strength deeper than your bank account or your list of accomplishments. I've sat with many older people who spent their lives collecting things, titles, and experiences, only to find in their final years that none of it offers any comfort. When the real questions show up, who am I, really, without my job or my roles? What was the point of it all? What is this thing called death that is now standing at my door? If you haven't done the inner work, these questions become terrifying. Elders who have ignored their spiritual side often become paralyzed by fear and regret, trying to outrun the one thing no one outruns. They fixate on youth and distractions to avoid looking at the deeper realities of life. But those who have nurtured their spirit, whether through faith, philosophy, nature, or quiet reflection, approach their final chapter with a sense of calm and acceptance. They have a sense that they belong to a story much larger than their own, that their life had a meaning that can't be taken away, and that death is not just an end, but a transition. Cultivating a spiritual life isn't about one set of rules. It's about building the inner muscle that allows you to face the ultimate reality with courage and grace. The self-imposed poverty. The seventh fatal error is the financial carelessness that forces your final decades to be defined by stress, dependency, and the constant, grinding worry over money. I've seen countless people who had solid careers and good paychecks end up in poverty in their old age. Why? Because they never practiced the discipline of planning for the future. Financial dignity in your later years isn't about being a millionaire. It's about having the freedom to make choices, to live comfortably, and to not be a weight on your loved ones when you can no longer work. It is about never having to stare at a pharmacy bill and an empty fridge and choose between them. The heartbreaking thing is that planning for this isn't complex. It just demands foresight and the will to choose long-term security over short-term wants, a skill our culture of instant gratification wages war against. People spend their whole lives chasing the next purchase on a credit card, assuring themselves that retirement is a problem for future them. But future you eventually shows up, and the consequences of those choices become unavoidable. The pressure of financial trouble in old age poisons everything: your health, your family ties, your mental peace, and your ability to enjoy the time you have. Nearly every person who ages with a sense of security has one thing in common: they made a habit of living on less than they earned, saving, and preparing for the years ahead. They knew money couldn't buy happiness, but they also knew that a lack of it guarantees misery. A final truth. The eighth mistake is treating the end of life like an invading army you must fight, instead of a natural homecoming you must prepare for. Society teaches you to fear death, to deny it, to view it as a failure. But this denial only creates the terror it claims to prevent. I have been with many people in their final days. I can promise you, the ones who struggle the most are not the ones in the most physical pain. They are the ones whose minds are completely unprepared for death. They've invested so much energy in not thinking about it that when it's right in front of them, they are filled with regret, terror, and a desperate, heartbreaking desire to bargain for more time. But the ninth and most devastating mistake of all, the one that is an absolute guarantee of a miserable end, is failing to see that aging is not a process of becoming less. It is a process of becoming more. It is the final unveiling of the person you have been building your entire life. It is your chance to finally embody all the lessons, all the love, all the survival. When you resist this, when you wage a war against your own timeline, when you desperately chase the ghost of your younger self, instead of embracing the magnificent person you are now, you throw away the greatest gift of a long life. The people who take our breath away in their old age are never the ones who who look the youngest. They are the ones who look the most real. They carry their age not as a burden, but as a badge of honor. Their strength is etched on their faces, not as failure, but as the beautiful, undeniable map of a life fully and courageously lived.